Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm honored for your presence. I'm excited about our conversation. While it's still tough times to use these kinds of words for excitement with the devastation that is happening globally, I just wanted to still take the time and go through this program with you. Many of you have been asking about our work, ISM specifically, and many have been asking about this resilient canvas. So I thought this would be a great opportunity since we do this on a monthly basis anyway. What is the resilient canvas and what is ISM? So let's jump right in. If you allow me, I'd like to share my screen, a few slides that could potentially help us visualize for those who are able to see it. And for those who are just listening or tuning in, this might just allow you to have a reference at one point to go back to. So the resilient leadership or the resilient entrepreneur, start where you are, leveraging what you already have. What we're going to cover today, a little bit about the canvas and how we came up with it, a little bit about my background of how we even got here. And then we're going to talk about a little bit for those who've been asking about ISM and what we do. And then we'll talk about next steps. And of course, at any given point, as you already know, for those who've joined us before in some of these webinars or workshops, you could always ask me things on the side with a Q&A section or with the chat. And for those who are in the Zoom with us today, clearly you can do that. For those who are online joining us at no cost, you're welcome to do that in the comment sections that are public. So for those who are in the classroom, I will be sending you a link. So since you are paying for this workshop, I will have you join a classroom that will give you access to additional information such as the canvas as well as the workbook and some of the other things that we have here. And for those who already pre-ordered the book, you will also get that in a PDF as well as you will get the physical book shortly, as you know. Depending when you order it, it will be shipped and you will hopefully get it soon. At any point, of course, feel free to use your phone to take pictures, tag us, and anything you like. But I'd like to start with this resilient idea is life is full of surprises, as we all know. You could plan it, and then life happens, as you might have heard this statement before. And what I'd like to do is, I did this a couple of months ago with in another state, and I always like to start with a question. And I'm asking you the same question that I asked there before, really just for the context of this conversation. So when I say Michigan is about what size of Alabama, I'm curious to hear from your perspective, what do you think? Those who are with me in the Zoom, please feel free to put the question, the answer in the chat, A, B, C, or D, or E. And those who are watching us live, please feel free to do the same in the public comment section. I'm sure some of you are already Googling that, and if you are, that's okay. If you want to do that, I really wanted to just for you to just shout it out from your own perspective. Of course, there is a correct answer, and the correct answer is 1.9, right? Michigan is about 1.9 the size of Alabama. And I have it here overlap for those who are able to see it visually from one of the websites that we use for data. And what's really interesting is once you start seeing these things or understanding the concept of them, then reality could become a little bit different than perception. And then, of course, I could ask more questions about population, about density. But I'm going to stop right here to prove just one of the things I want you to think about as we go through this conversation. Many of the things I'm going to mention today, you may think you already know. As a matter of fact, some of the things you may know that you already know. And some of it probably true, you may already know it. And some of it, I'm going to call it myths that you know, but I'm going to bring into reality today. And some of it, you do know it, but you never really have taken the time to really articulate it in the way that we're going to discuss today. So I'm hoping that the canvas that we share with you today and some of the ideas that we will discuss will give you what I would call the reference points or the map that helps you get there so therefore you can see it rather than just driving through it without knowing where the road is going to lead you. I've been lucky to work with founding ISM, International Strategic Management, and our work has been global. For the last 20 years, we've reached over 101 countries, and we continue to grow because of your blessing, because of your engagement, because of your uh, kindness. So much appreciated for that. These are some of the programs that we've touched and some of the countries we've worked with. And, there are a few more that are not here. An example would be South Africa as well as Australia. But hopefully the next time we do this workshop, we'll update this slide. Our work is limited somewhat. I just want to make sure I mention that. We work on these, I'm calling them 5 pillars: the globalization, entrepreneurship, technology, education, and community. So all of our programs usually touch one of these, if not all, and usually around these topics. So I want to make sure that you also know that we're limited to the experience that we have created through these journeys or these topics. Been lucky to work with all kinds of organizations in different capacity, whether it's my personal journey or some of the team journey or some of work altogether as the ISM team experience. And we've worked with organizations that you might know of, organizations that you might have never heard of, but generally speaking, these are the organizations that engage us in some kind of work in that community that they're working with, or they're trying to foster either entrepreneurship or leadership or community building in that area. I'm always intrigued by any questions here. So those who are interested in the chat, please feel free to ask, hey, what was your work with whoever? And you can just name the organizations or point it at me, and I'm happy to chat with you with that. For those who are in the Zoom call with us today, I'm happy to stick around after this to answer them in person. For those who are online, just we'll try to capture it as much as we can. There are lots of programs. I think we counted over 20-some programs that we have in the ISM umbrella, and it ranges from entrepreneurship ecosystem mapping, which basically means just what are the support systems or mechanisms that are available for entrepreneurs in your community, from assessing it to mapping it to creating it or fostering it or engaging it, all the way to startup to scale-ups, women entrepreneurship or women engagement, underserved communities, represented communities, and of course, one of the biggest things that we've been doing for the last 5 years specifically is what I would call sector development. So creating initiatives that potentially cultivate a sector specific within a country or within a region, such as tourism, entrepreneurship, small business development programs or activities or initiatives. Beyond ISM, what we've been building in the last few years, 20-some, is we've built now a whole resilient entrepreneur program that people can actually join its own academy, and people could take it themselves or they could become trained to facilitate the program. And so we have a train-the-trainer model on it. And of course, since about 3 years ago, I've been podcasting on a weekly basis, occasionally interviewing entrepreneurs, and every other week answering questions from entrepreneurs addressing specific questions. And then for those who are not familiar, we do have a nonprofit called Connecting Dots that's really focused on entrepreneurship in youth and STEAM. And it goes a little bit beyond that, but a lot of times we run many of our high school or youth programs or college programs under the Connecting Dots umbrella. And it's a nonprofit that we have formed back in 2019. Beyond ISM on international brands, we are lucky to work with many global groups that you might be familiar with. One of them is Global Entrepreneurship Week, so we're always honored to host and be part of the hosting committee here in Michigan, as well as participate in many of the Global Entrepreneurship Network activities globally. We are an affiliate of Kauffman Fast Track, so we run their classes here in Michigan and abroad, as well as Growth Wheel and Startup Grind and Kiva. For those who are interested in funding, we are a trustee with Kiva that we could endorse someone up to $15,000 worth of loans at zero interest. And we just signed an agreement with Lindio that go up to a few more $1 million in loans. I've been blessed to work with over 250,000 entrepreneurs globally in many countries. You could read the slides, so I'm going to just keep moving. The way we work with groups is usually in 2 different tracks. Track 1, what I call is the actual entrepreneur support organizations or EDOs or ESOs. Sometimes they call them enablers. These are organizations that support entrepreneurs' activities in a local community. And then the second track is the actual work with the entrepreneurs themselves, where we may be helping them start a business, grow a business, sustain a business, or just think like an entrepreneur or being leaders in their communities. I think because of how we've worked in the past and where we sat in this ecosystem between the, the EDOs, ESOs, and the entrepreneurs and the funders sometimes, we have had a unique approach to our programs as well as the community engagement part of it. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper in that after I go through the Resilient Canvas. Been blessed to have this global stage, as I mentioned before, from the US all the way to Myanmar and everything else in between, to have this opportunities to interact with so many groups from the underrepresented to the rich and famous and everything else in between. And the reason I mention that because it really gives you a perspective of how we gained the insights that I'm going to be sharing with you today. I personally, originally from Palestine, grew up in Kuwait and came to the US after the first Gulf War. Leveraging what you already have from my perspective is just what we all do a lot of times without even knowing it. And the Canvas today will help you create a frame of reference or a frame of work that you could always use over and over to continue to move forward with any struggle they may personally have or the community that you're serving have. As many of you may know, I'm Palestinian origin, with my grandparents, part of them coming from Beersheba, and some of them coming from Jaffa and Haifa, living in Gaza. And because of many wars, they ended up in multiple places, some still in Gaza, some all over the world. Growing up, having had to visit every year, every summer we spent there, basically, it was really amazing experience to just see the people and what they're doing. Growing up in this small family net allowed me to really understand what would it take to be resilient, watching grandparents and parents evolve to continue to prosper in oppressive areas or oppressive regimes around them, making sure that they're not, prospering, although they're found ways to do it. I grew up most of my life up till I became a U.S. citizen, carrying what is considered a refugee document to state that basically I'm stateless. The eyes were always in Canada initially, and part of it was many of my family and friends were immigrating to Canada, so I wanted to follow their pursuit to become Canadian at the time and to, go to school. But the war came up in 1990 as I was finishing high school in Kuwait, and then that really put a halt to my plans of becoming Canadian as well as going to Canada for education. And with a call from a high school teacher, I ended up becoming what I would have maybe could not ever imagined, an entrepreneur running a grocery plaza. Think of a whole plaza, the grocery store, the little stores around it. And now I have to not only manage it, open the doors, but also think about how I'm going to hire people and have anyone show up to work during wartime. And many of them, of course, were not feeling comfortable to come to work because of the situation, whether it's checkpoints or stops or army being present and guns being present or stank being present. That experience really allowed me to learn a little bit more about hiring, firing, logistics, orders, all these things that I had no clue, of course, about till I was forced to learn it. And then with change of plans, I got a call from one of the soldiers saying, "Hey, Ferris, you better leave. They don't have any good attention for you." Some of the soldiers liked my work because I also collaborate with them somewhat, helping them get food when they need it, but also not giving them all the food because we wanted to keep food flowing to the area. So managing that allowed me to create some rapport with some of them that allowed some of them to make sure that I'm not hurt. And one of them called and said, "You better leave." Although I've been obviously questioned many times, this time it was time for me to go. And then, of course, coming to the US was somewhat of a big surprise because I arrived on Halloween night to New York City. I'll let you imagine what that looked like. And then after New York, moving to Tucson, Arizona to start my school and learn about college and ensuring that my English is proper and continuing my journey. Then the 1990 war happened again, where now Kuwait is being liberated, but also a few things happening in Palestine that basically started creating some more trouble for my status and my work here. So about March 1991, I ended up losing my little studio that I was living in and moving into becoming a homeless person in addition to being stateless. That taught me a lot because, first I had to figure out what status do I have within the country now that I can't go anywhere, and being a stateless person, the political asylum seemed at the time what made best sense. Without going into too much details into that, because I have a whole nother workshop just on that, I'm going to jump in right into what that really meant as I was being stateless and homeless, fighting to survive. I started as I was a volunteer in many of the nonprofits, and initially in a mosque. And what I learned is they were trying to raise some money. So I said, why don't you make T-shirts, sell them? The difference between a wholesale and a retail could become the money that you're raising funds for that cause. That allowed me to start a T-shirt business. That allowed me then to work into the perfume that I grew that business from me selling in the streets to about 500 people in 7 states. Then learning some e-commerce and some limousine company and some consulting. And then in early 2000, joining Macy's department stores as part of their executive team, turning around some of the areas that they had. And then joining another startup that was buying mom and pop shops and converting them to corporate accounts or corporate offices. Helped them buy one of the stores in Arizona, and then opened up 7 more stores between Nevada and Arizona. And in 2003, founded ISM, where basically we do entrepreneurship and small business development, and you could call sector development in general in a variety of different ways, from initiating programs, assessing programs, to working with either institutions like government or nonprofits or universities to establish programs in their communities. I had to learn what you may think to be resilient, not necessarily because I wanted to, it's because I had no choice. And what I've been lucky with is throughout the volunteerism that I've done and throughout the actions that I've worked with the different groups, reflecting back on it, it allowed me to then start framing what resiliency looks like, from listening to it, being in it, and then of course reflecting on all the awesome people that were resilient that were around me. I want you to think about what can you do today to start thinking about volunteering in your community, because many of the things I learned, whether it was running the store in Kuwait or running a library in the mosque in Tucson, or anything else in between, allowed me to really be engaged in a way that provided me some insights to learn about what could be done in the communities that allowed me to open up some opportunities. Even as I learned how to become, you might call it executive, in the Macy's department stores or others, my own businesses, as I grew to grow them, it became clear that there are certain skills that I maybe didn't have, such as management, such as leadership, that I might have gained by practicing on people. Doesn't mean that I was good. It's just that's how it ended up to be. And as I learned from it and as I reflect on it, it became clear that you could potentially come up with a plan to gain some of these insights now. And as I transitioned from this refugee travel person to carrying a U.S. passport and being a citizen, doors started opening up, right? And as doors opened up, I got some more global stages now to speak on and be with. And the more I spoke and the more I went around, from Portugal to Spain to Myanmar to Uzbekistan to anything else in between, it allowed me to really affirm some of the knowledge that I've gained throughout the years by listening to others, but also to gain a lot of insights from these amazing people that I'm interacting with in that local communities. Some of the work that we've done have gotten some coverage from Diversity Professional Magazine, which I'm fortunate to have them. I'm looking here at the wall with one of their articles that they've written, and many others, Detroit News, and so on and so forth, to TV and radio, to some podcasts, not only my own, but also being on other people's guests' podcasts. There are a few books for those who are interested to read a little bit more about the journey or interested in some business ideas. The Power of Seven is focus on building relationships and understanding what would it take to cultivate a business. And then the Start Where You Are is somewhat what we're talking about here today, is understanding the resiliency that you already have and how you could leverage it. And of course, there's a workbook that goes with it. For those who are interested in just listening to some of these podcasts, you can join my podcast show. I do have a YouTube channel for it, but also it's available on the iTunes and all the other channels that you may be subscribing to as a podcast. excuse me, I'm going to skip the book itself because those who got it will be able to see the chapters, but these are the different chapters in the book. I'm going to somewhat be focusing on today really about the resilient canvas itself within the book and how to leverage it. This came on roughly during COVID, obviously 19 pandemic back in 2020. And I took the last flight from Saudi Arabia to Washington, D.C. It was literally the last flight. I was booked to leave about 1 a.m. on Friday morning when the world shut down in March of 2020, and my flight got canceled. And then they kept rebooking me, and every flight they booked got canceled. And then it became clear to me that the world is going through something that I've seen before, or at least going towards something that I've seen before, which is, from my perspective, kind of like a war, just because of how things are canceling and how things are going. Now, good news, there were no bombs being dropped from the sky, but the smell of it, the scent of it, and the feeling of it was definitely like things are shutting down because of some pandemic. As I arrived, it became clear that people were calling me from all over the world, asking first, what are we going to do? Not that necessarily I had an answer for, but people knew that I had exposure, global exposure to different ideas that I potentially may have some thoughts of what could be done for, well, people being at home. With that call that I started saying, let's do something with it, it became clear that all the people that were around me were resilient. They already figured out what to do, how to do, when to do, and how to make sure that they're moving forward. What became clear to me is it was an opportunity for me to reflect on what I've learned throughout these years. So the different times that I personally had to overcome obstacles. So the different times I worked with others, helping them become over obstacles. And then with the different times that people shared with me what they've done to overcome obstacles and keep moving forward. And it became clear that we all have this resiliency in us. Many times we suppress it, not intentionally, unintentionally, and many other times we don't know that we have it, so we're seeking it somewhere else. And I'm hoping once we go through this canvas that it opens up your eyes of how you could continue to stay resilient as times change. I use this image because a lot of times, we don't see what we see till someone else puts it there. The road may be there, but you've chosen always to take a different road, not because you don't want to, it's just because you never used any tools to get you there. What I'd love for you to do is take this 20 seconds and stare at this light bulb. Just stare at it. And as you stare at it, I'm going to quiet for a minute and give you 20 seconds to look at it. I'm going to do something here. Maybe you could consider magical, but my point to you would be is that you already have it, and I'm going to help you find it. I'm going to count to 20, and we'll go to the next slide. But please stare at the light bulb. I hope that you continue to stare, because now I know that you're probably seeing that light bulb somewhere in this blank screen. And you might think, I didn't know Ferris makes magic. I don't make magic. This was a trick that I learned from someone. But what I want you to understand here is this magic that you're seeing now, seeing that light bulb. I'm hoping that it brings a light bulb for you to see this resilient canvas I'm sharing with you today, to utilize it yourself. And once you see it, you will learn really quickly. It becomes harder for you to see it because now you have the tools to figure it out. I'll use this example a lot of times. It's like me giving you a nail, saying, nail it in the wall. You could use all kinds of stuff. You could use your phone. You could use the paper. You could use anything else to drill it in the wall. Or I could give you that same nail, but give you a little bit of tools, a little thing to see if there is a stud somewhere in the wall, a little tool called hammer that you could use to hammer it down, maybe a drill to drill before you hammer, and maybe some tape that could help you tape exactly where you should tape it or measure it or put it up there, so therefore you can hang the picture that you want to hang. So these tools that you get just helps you get the job done better, easier, safer. That's really all what it comes down to. Nothing more, nothing less. Not good, it's not bad, it's just different. So this canvas, I'm hoping it'll give you that tool for you to use it over and over and without you having to struggle to hang that picture up. So let's talk about it. This became clear to me after talking to people in 60 some countries and over 5,000 people calling every Monday at 10 a.m. from about March till about September, October timeframe of 2020. And as I started reflecting, it became clear that they all have this, but no one was using it. So I took the time to frame it. And as I share with few people, many started telling me that this is something that I should potentially protect and make sure that people get licensed to use it. And we've done that since then. So now people can license it to use it in their community, and we do train the trainers to use it. I'm going to run you through it today. So there are 4 blocks that you will see in here. And the first one is mindset, understanding how you think, then going through the self, being aware of who you are and what's around you. By the way, one of the things I learned really quick, people think, well, I don't know this stuff. I don't know myself. No one ever knows it 100%. I'm just talking about some of the ideas here. And then understanding the business part. And by the way, you could scratch business and say personal, and it's the same idea. What do you have? What you can leverage? What you could offer? What you could pilot? And then how you move forward with these things. Now, you'll notice that this is simple. And it took me about 6 months just to make it that simple. Initially, it was very complex. And to make things simple, it takes, I guess, more time, more effort than it is to make it more complex. And of course, under each one of them, I came up with some, I'm going to call them concepts underneath it. And then I evolved it. I'm looking here at the left. This was done during COVID. This was done just last year. Different times, different things, so different questions, but the idea is the same. The mindset should be thinking about entrepreneurship, leadership, and empathy or compassion. Being self-aware is understanding that you could acknowledge things, you could freak out sometimes, but you have to move to action. And then being aware of who's around you, supporting you or discouraging you. And then looking at what you have from business ideas to actual things like inventory or cash, to leveraging it, to understanding how you could offer something and pilot it and testing it and modifying it, and then how you move forward to continue moving forward. One of the blogs I've mentioned before, and this idea is you do to go, but you reflect to grow. So if you want to go somewhere, you got to start doing something. But if you really want to grow it, you really got to take the time to reflect on it so you can learn from it. By the way, you'll never learn 100%, but maybe you'll come up with 1 or 2 ideas that will help you overcome what may be becoming of a challenge or becoming of a growth. Now, of course, there are lots of questions that I have embedded in this, and those who are watching us, and we'll get in our classroom that are joined our membership, or if you're paying for the classroom, clearly you'll have access to all these tools in the classrooms. And those who are joining us via free public information, please feel free to take a picture of it and come back to it, and feel free to ask us any questions. But this concept here, I came up with these questions that potentially we could easily spend in each one of these questions, as a matter of fact, the next 90 days. And as you know, those who went through the program, we do run it in a 7-week or a 14-week cohort. And there's plenty to cover in that topic under each one of them. There's more that we could do, but this is how we run it, kind of like in a very expressed, compact way. So let's jump right in. Under entrepreneurship, the mindset is really 3 ideas. You got to be aware of what opportunity are you creating or what problem are you solving. So it doesn't have to be a problem, but it could be an opportunity, and you have to be aware of it. That's really the entrepreneurship mindset. It's not right, not wrong. I see a problem, I would like to solve it, or I see an opportunity, I'd like to create it. An example would be, I'm in the healthcare sector. I drive people around, and there's an opportunity to ensure that there's someone that could maybe work with the community with a disability. Maybe they don't see, maybe they don't hear, maybe they need a wheelchair, whatever that is. Case, maybe there's an opportunity to drive individuals with special needs, right? If it's leadership, you have to think about, you may be the first person taking that chance, or you might be the first person taking that step. So that also means that you have to accept that responsibility, that you may be facing challenges because you're the first one, as well as accept the responsibility that you have to continue leading in that kind of fashion. And then the last thing in the mindset, because resiliency from my perspective is because something is happening and you have to continue moving forward. So you got to be resilient with it. That means something is happening, and that's happening. You have to be able to show that you're compassion, and I've added the word empathy to it as well. Now, please note that I have worked with some leaders that have none of this stuff. I'm just saying the ones that did really well with the communities that they were serving had these things. So compassion and empathy, be able to find ways to connect with the people that you're serving or working with, as well as to show that you care. Again, you will notice that there might be others that are leaders that have none of this stuff. That's fine. I'm just saying the people that I worked with, the 6,000 or so plus that I worked with over the period of those 6 months, were clearly to me have articulated these things. So the entrepreneurs, you already know, for those who are interested, we have a whole nother program, sets of programs on entrepreneurship, from startup to scale up to mindset and everything else in between. You're really looking for that challenge. Maybe you're looking for that opportunity. Maybe you're looking for a problem to solve. And it's a journey that you take on. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not as clear. Most of the time, it takes a lot of different tools, different times, different effort to get you there. The one thing I usually like to say about entrepreneurship mindset is if you have the resources, time, money, and people to get things done, then you could disregard everything I've said, because then you could just try it with all the resources that you have and see what happens. If you're limited with your time, if you're limited with your people that you may have, and if you're limited with your cash, you might want to pay small attention, because that's usually the people I work with are in that case. They're trying to figure it out and they're limited with the resources. So how do you launch a program without having all of these? How do you solve a problem without having to deploy all the resources? This mindset allows you to leverage those resources that you may have to create these opportunities or to solve these problems. One thing I noticed about the mindset of these individuals who I would call resilient leaders and entrepreneurs, that they had this idea of being a victorious versus being a victim. They did not spend time thinking about, look what's wrong with me, or look, why is this happening to me? They did ask those questions, but they moved on really quickly to say, there's an opportunity for me to do something. And you're going to see me pulling that thread throughout this conversation. So move from victim mindset to victorious mindset. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat for those who are with us today. Please, what does that mean to you when I say moving from victim mindset to victorious mindset? Not an easy task, especially if you're being oppressed by someone, right? It's just the concept of it is to think about victorious versus being a victim. Then once you finish this mindset, now these things could happen all the same time, by the way. They don't have to go step by step, but it helps if you follow the flow of what I'm going through. And as a matter of fact, for those who want to repeat it, it might be easier to go back and say, all right, what's the opportunity? What's the problem? Am I the first leader to it? Are there leaders in it in the space I could leverage? Do I have a way to communicate that I could relate to the people in this space that I'm going to serve? So if you think that way, then it becomes easier to flow through these 4 steps or 4 stages. Next, you want to be aware of yourself. Now, under self, I realized there are actually 2 components under self-awareness. Being self-aware of you yourself is one, but also being self-aware of what's around you and who's surrounding you is another. Knowing that you're going through a challenge and acknowledging it to freak out, it's okay. You could freak out. What I usually tell people is just you can't stay freaking out. Okay? You can freak out for a minute, you can freak out for a day, you can freak out for a week, but you got to move on. And the way you do that is you move to actions. You move to actions by checking the facts to really understand, is this true or not? And if it is true, what am I going to do about it? And then check out the information source, because a lot of times what I've learned through these rough times is a lot of times the information is being shared is not legit, or coming from a person that is not authority in this space, or coming from a place that is maybe just not, they won't gain if they know the truth. They need you to be unaware, so therefore they could just keep pushing you how they want to push you. So just be aware of that yourself. That it's okay to acknowledge that if you're maybe facing a challenge, it's okay to freak out, but you got to move to some actions, creating a short list that you could do something about, and then check any facts that you may be thinking that they're facts, but they're not. One example I use here is, inflation. Sure, there's inflation now. Sure, there's logistics challenges. So what you're going to do about it is check where are these things happening, who is saying it, and then check if there are ways to go about it. Second thing I want you to be aware of, being aware of what's around you. Are there individuals that maybe you could leverage to get better information from? Are there individuals around you that could help you, uplift you, or support you, right? Are there individuals that could maybe help you, could find a way to collaborate with? And then the second thing around you want to think about is you got to let go of what you can't control. Hey, listen, I can't control if it's going to rain today or not. What I can control is I could have an umbrella or not. Okay, I can't control if there is wind today or not. What I can control, where do I have to go if it's too windy to be out there or not, right? So think about letting go of what you can't control and focus on what you can't control. Now, what I tell people is if there's something that you can't control but you want to influence it to change, I'm not saying that you should be quiet, not at all. I'm just saying control what you can control and work towards what you can't control to change it the right channels. And think about any challenge you may be facing today. Is that an opportunity to do something? Okay. So if there's a challenge that you're facing, you can't go somewhere. Is there an opportunity to create transportation or mobility for someone, right? And when you look around you, think about how you could repurpose things. Repurposing things, you will see it overflowing into the business side as well. But repurposing things, you are in a 2-bedroom apartment and you have a second room that you no longer will be receiving guests, or that you want to be receiving guests, and today it's an office. Can you repurpose it? How can you repurpose it? How can you move things around? Okay, think about that. And just know that when you're looking around you, many times you might be the leader within the community that you're in. At least the people I worked with, many times, they were the ones who people looked for them to change, to make a change in that community or to lead that community forward. So if that's you, don't be looking for someone within the community to do it. You got to take those steps. You got to make that happen. And if there are many of you within that community, then you have to come as a group and think about what you could do there as well. I'm going to move next to the business side. And as you can see, this canvas, once you see it once and once you learn it once, I'm hoping that it becomes natural for you to think about what's the opportunity? Am I the first one taking the step? Can I relate to the people? Do I have the whole facts? Is it okay to move forward? Do I have actions I can take? Are there individuals I could leverage around me to get me there? And now we can talk about the business. What resources do you have? Now, a lot of times people think resources is money. Money is one of the resources. We're definitely going to talk about that for those who are in the loan program. How much cash? What cash do you need? Do you need a line of credit? Do you need a loan? All those things are part of the resources, but also resources, college that you went to or graduated from, schools that you went to or graduated, communities you lived in, associations you belong to, neighborhoods that you're in. These are all part of resources, right? Of course, your products, of course, your services, of course, your customers, of course, if you have a patent, all these things are part of your resources. I want you to think about that. This is what I have today. And for those who tell me I have nothing, well, you didn't really think hard, because I usually give you the time to think through it. You really think about all the things that you have. You yourself is a resource, right? What is it that you have? Knowledge, insights, information, connections. And if you say, I only know 10 people, I challenge that. You went to school somewhere. Think about who you went to school. No one liked me at school. That's fine. Someone did. Maybe it's your teacher, right? So think about what you could do with that, what you have. Then I want you to think about what you could leverage. If you know someone, maybe they can give you information. You don't have to have cash. Maybe someone could loan you. Maybe someone could allow you to sell your product at their location or at their site. Maybe they give you insights of how to build your online store or your online presence. So think about what you could leverage with what you have. I use the next example as you're having big bottles of perfumes, and maybe you could put them in smaller bottles, or the other way around. You have a bunch of smaller ones, you could put them in bigger ones. So think about what you could leverage with what you already have. Then think about what you could offer with it, right? So now I have these things. I could leverage them in this way. So I have this office that I could leverage it by calling some of my friends to come work from there at no cost to them, right? So at least there are a bunch of us working together. And then now maybe we could offer a new service that maybe none of us were offering to by ourselves, but we're offering it together, or we offer a new product that we were not offering altogether. Then I could pilot. I'm going to test it on this market specifically. I have a small segment. I want to test it. I'm going to start selling it in the streets. I'm going to start selling it to people I know. I'm going to start selling it to people I don't know. I'm going to start selling it to this segment of group or this persona of a, excuse me, of a customer. And once you pilot or test, you can make modifications to keep you moving forward. The moving forward comes in 5 ideas. You got to think about how you're going to operate and manage that operation. One of the examples I use in the past is we worked with an entrepreneur that had to create 2 different shifts. They used to work 1 shift altogether. Everybody shows up, and he came up with 3 shifts. Somebody shows up, creates the products. Someone shows up, packages the products. Someone shows up and delivers the products or sells it to the customer. 3 different shifts to make sure that they're working separately at the time because of this limited space that they had, because they didn't have enough space to make all of them work. We had someone else do the opposite. There used to be 3 shifts, and now they just came back and did it all in 1 shift. You have to figure that piece out, but you got to think about your operation. You got to think about safety and security, because when there's some turbulence, safety and security for people becomes top of mind. Okay, and then how you manage your time as a leader as well as their time becomes really critical. And of course, anytime there's a challenge, understanding how you communicate internally and externally becomes vital, because things change really fast in those crisis moments. I hope that this canvas give you a reference, a framework that you could use to overcome whatever challenge you may be facing, or for those who are trying to grow their businesses, if you use it in a way to help you think through what opportunities can you go after, or what problems can you solve to grow your businesses in, and allowed you to move forward with these concepts. Of course, I would love for those who would like to join us for longer conversations. This was, as you know, an overview of the Resilient Entrepreneur or Leadership Canvas. And I hope that you know that as you use it, you got to think about the language that you use when you're starting up or you're growing up. Because when you're startup mode is a completely set of mindset of growth mode. And the biggest example I use, because of the different people I work with, I usually say when you're startup mode, you're a survival mode, right? So you're trying to capture everything and keep eating everything. When you're growth mode, you are more of spending mode. So you got to invest money to grow it and get back some return on investment later. 2 different mindsets depending on your stage today and where you are. I love to always end with Detroit because I've been lucky to have been driving by this one building as an example. There's so many other buildings I could use. I chose to use this building because what's unique about this building is I drove by it and then I learned it was the first Cadillac dealership in the world. And it was, when I walked through it, it was a 3-story, somewhat of a garage, 3rd floor. They made the cars, they rolled it to the 2nd floor, they painted it or finished it, and then they went to the 1st floor and was the sales floor. Over the years, obviously became a little bit more complex, but that's really the premise of how this building was. And in 2008, as I continued to drive by it, someone had a vision to say, we want it to look like this. And I think this was around 2012. And of course, you know, at the time, you might not think that this building could ever potentially be this. How can that possibly be? And thank you to Google, because you could actually go back in time and see what it looked like. You can go back and look at 2009 from the same corner and see that the same building or the same infrastructure area is there. And for those who are really good at details, you can see right here, this one building is the same building right here. So this building right here is also the same here. And then, but lots of things changed. This building is gone. Now it's a little bit of open area. And now there's, rather than the parking lot, there is this building here, right? So there are lots of changes that happen. I don't want to bore you with this idea, but I do want to bring up your attention is when you have a vision and you could see it, and you have a roadmap to get you there, it just allows you to get there with more resources because more people are interested in supporting you. I'm going to stop right here for those who were here for the Resilient Canvas only and say thank you so much. I'm going to move from the Resilient Canvas to talk about some of the work that ISM does and how these different ideas that we talked about earlier fits into the bigger overall umbrella of how we work. And the best way to do that is to really talk about how we meet entrepreneurs or organization that supports them where they are, understanding what stage of businesses they're going after or communities that they're trying to support, and then deploying the right proper programs that supports them and how they potentially could work together. From awareness of entrepreneurship mindset to maturity or growth or merger and acquisitions or anything else in between, there are lots of tools out there and terminology from tech parks to incubation, to post-incubation, to growth, to co-working spaces, to entrepreneurship center that we could use some of this knowledge to say, let's build the right environment and build around it the ecosystem that is needed, not necessarily that you have to do it, to make sure that there is a pathway for this community to develop the sectors that they're trying to engage within that community. The reality as we went to work with different entrepreneurs is there are all kinds of entrepreneurs, and it's hard to capture all of these ideas. The few that I mentioned here is that I'm going to call them those who want to be, those who are, those who are small, and those who want to, grow or micro, whatever you want to call them, they're different. And that makes it more complex. And because it's more complex, I like to simplify it. And how I simplify it is really simple. I usually say, meet them where they are. Meet them where they are as a community, meet them where they are as entrepreneurs, meet them where they are, whatever. Allow you then to help you get them where you want them to be. The example I use, if you meet entrepreneurs who want to get a loan from a bank or get a micro loan from a bank or get a grant from somewhere, but they don't have a plan, they don't have a business, they don't have an idea clear yet. Well, help them first clear it up, help them then write it, whether you write it for them or they write it themselves, and then help them get to apply. So meeting them where they are means that you have to deploy different resources to help them get to where you want them to be. Now, it could be just you as an organizer, or it could be that you partner with other groups to help them get there. This whole entrepreneurship and small business and medium enterprises idea is so confusing and so diluted in the marketplace. When I ask these questions, I've asked these questions in over 100 countries. The answers are mind-blowing, okay? But it became clear to me that really no one have taken the time to differentiate between them. And I have chosen to take the time to differentiate between them, to say entrepreneurship is a mindset. By the way, for those who are interested to answer the questions, please feel free to do that in the chat. Entrepreneurship from a mindset, and small and medium enterprise where entrepreneurs sometimes are being identified as. But as a mindset, you could work for a big corporation and have an entrepreneur mindset. Entrepreneurship mindset is really simple. What problem do I solve? Or what opportunity do I create? And what resources do I have to help me get there? There's a definition. I'm not going to bore you with that. You could read that. But from my perspective, that's really the mindset. A small business is just a business that's operating on a smaller scale. One person owns it, maybe a family owns it, but it's just a small operation. They probably don't have any logistics or any mechanism to sustain it long term, but they happen to do it all the time. And they might have some, I call them, operation at scale. Medium business may have a little bit more operations that is under their belt, and it just happens to be able to repeat it. A large business, I'm going to say, is a completely different thing, because now we're talking about maybe multiple smaller businesses in one, but the approach is different, the thought is different, the system is different. It's no longer 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 or 30 people running it. Now we're talking about departments, talking about different ideas. So this is where confusion becomes, because a lot of times you'll think small business just happens to be exactly the same way that a big business operates, just happens to be small. And this is where I say, watch it, because it's not really that simple. So knowing how to support them, what to support them with become key, because what I've seen is a lot of times we support them with the wrong tools. An example I use all the time is that you bring in individuals who work in large corporations and say, support these startups. Well, if they have no resources, they might be giving them fantastic advice, but the person listening at the other end have no resources to implement these amazing advice. So you have to help the entrepreneurs where they are today get to be able to take that advice and do something with it. That process is where we would like to play. And this is where we create programs and collaborations in that community. This ISM approach, meet them where they are, is a 7-step process that we follow in every program or in every activity that we do. And it's, of course, for those who got our 20th Impact Report. It's in there. And for those who are watching us today, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper in it to help you understand how we approach it. But I'm not going to read them because you could read these things on your own. It's understanding what the community background is, what's happening, and then understanding where we want to go as a community, and then understanding what types of businesses and who's going to be involved within the community and what stages of businesses you want to support. You could do all. I'm just saying that understanding these things and then implementing it and revisiting it for feedback is really the ways that we do it. Now, you might be looking at this like, first, I do that already. That's great. I'm glad to hear it. My experience has been that many times it's so simple that no one's doing it or skipping certain things because they want to just get to the implementation part. So I'm hoping by you seeing it here that you follow these steps. And the way we do that is we start initially with this whole entrepreneurship mindset, the background of the entrepreneurs, what they want trying to do, why they're trying to do, where they want to do it. Makes a big difference if someone's coming from an underserved community that's trying to sell coffee shop or create a coffee shop in a community because they have no choice because no one's giving them a job, to have it in the community that they live in. Different resources, different support than if someone is really well connected that is trying to start a tech business because they would like to in their spare time to do it online. Not right, not wrong, just different. That allows you then to build the right program to help them get to where you want them to be. I want them to have a big office and hire 500 people. All right, well, let's meet them where they are to help them launch that business so they could get there. Or you could choose to refer them to a partner of yours. So understanding that will help. And then from my perspective, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are those main factors of business? Many times you'll have so many ideas about these businesses, and I'm asking you to think about what are those factors from your perspective. And from my perspective, it's those 3 M's, the money, the market, and the management. Now, underneath it could be very complex. Are you getting money from the pricing? Are you getting money from because of funding? Do you need cash? All kinds of stuff could go underneath it. The market, the same, right? Is there a customer? Is there demand, competition? Where are you going to sell? How are you going to sell? All these things are under the market. And then if you look at the management from the people that you're going to, manage all the way to leadership, all the way to partnership, it's all under management. If you make it that simple, and I'm oversimplifying it clearly here, then it becomes really easy to build your programs to meet them where they are. And to understand that not every business needs to have a business plan, but they might need to plan for the business. Big difference. A business plan has these 12-ish topics that has to be covered, certain formulas, certain way. To having a plan for the business could be in a napkin, could be on a piece of paper, could be a 2-pager to say, here's my customer, this is how I make money, who's who I'm going to sell it to, and I need $50,000 loan to do A, B, C, D. Then that's really simple, right? So differentiating to meeting them where they are is really key by understanding that not every business has to need to have a business plan, but they might want to have a plan. And many times, by the way, they have a plan. They just don't know that they do have a plan or they have not articulated it. The way we approach it is by offering these different programs. So if they're in the idea stage, we would like to usually put them in either a business planning course or exploring entrepreneurship, which is, I call it the mini business plan, maybe a 10-pager, just answering some of those questions I mentioned earlier, or maybe helping them figure out how to ask for money with their salon or a sale, right? So helping them figure that piece out really quick is really important to clarify that idea into becoming a business. If they're already in business, they might need planning for the business, right? Because they've been growing it. Maybe they started, but they never really got a plan for it. So now we put them in a business planning class. Maybe we use the business model canvas because they're trying to figure out, can they grow the business? Can they figure it out to sustain the business? And if they're a growth stage, of course, we could use other programs as well. As you can see, every stage can build from the stage before it. But now we have different tools. We have the growth wheel. We have the listening to your business program. We have the capital readiness program because they might be ready to take that next step. And if they're in crisis, we like to use the resilient canvas, or maybe we do an assessment, and we have a great program called contingency plan. It's helping them come up with a contingency plan if God forbid something happens. Now, there are some programs, I call them signatures, that could be used in anywhere, like the resilient entrepreneur. It just changes the questions that we ask, and it changes how we engage them. business coaching. But of course, I usually don't recommend it in the idea stage or startup stage because it becomes really expensive to grow those businesses unless they have the resources. I like to usually use it between startup and growth, but it can be used for idea if you're doing one too many. And then workshops. It could be different topics or subtopics from these ideas that we're discussing. And many times we may get organizations say, I just want to have my own program, which is great. Good news is we have these different programs that we could pull from to help you think through what would be the best way to approach your community with a program that could meet them where they are, to help them get where you want them to be or get the results that you're looking for. I will share this other secret that we have used for the last 20 years. And this is what I call the recipe of building that program. So I gave you the framework of how we started, and then now we decided on a program we're going to deploy. This is how we build it. We look at making sure that there's a facilitated discussion happening in that program. We try to make sure that there's always some kind of component of an online and in-person component. And we've done this, by the way, pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. And then we always have to think about some kind of group discussion, local speakers coming to speak about different topics, and then the peer-to-peer activity must be part of the concept. One thing I like to mention, we don't go by slides with 3 lines and here we go, that's your workbook. We actually develop a whole workbook that goes with each slide. And then there have to be some practical exercises, or I call them case studies, that could potentially help the people learn. And we use the 10-10-80 magic. And those who have been with us for a while know that this is kind of how we mix the program participants to make sure that there's a nicer mix. Those who are interested in learning more, please just DM me and I'm happy to give you more details. We have lots of tools that many of them, by the way, are free. You can download on our website for free, like the Canvas is available for free. And I can plug you into any of our programs for free. And then, of course, there are programs that, once you get the free stuff, like if you want the workbook, we sell it. The workbook is a little bit different and that costs a little bit more money. But many of the things are available for free on our website. There are lots of examples I could talk about here, so I'm not going to go through those details with you, but those who have the slides will have it. Love to hear from you. One word about today in the chat or in the question and answer section. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being with me here. And for those who like to give me some feedback, here's one way to do it. I don't think we ask you for your name, or if we do, it's just optional. So you could be as brutally honest about the Canvas or about the work that we've done or anything else in between. Love to hear from you. You could use your phone again to do that. And for those who like to stay connected, please feel free to download my contact information to your phone and know that you could reach me at any point, at any time. And I want to say thank you. For those who are interested in buying any of our books or products or programs, feel free to do that. We do have a membership that's 1 year that gives you every month some kind of workbook, but we also have a 1 year membership for the Resilient Canvas where you get the course online, you get some emails, and then you get some checking points from us, as well as the workbooks, and you will receive both the book as well as the workbook in a physical format. Those who want to learn more could use their phone to scan to read more about the program. Those who are ready to join for $27 a month or $300 for the year, you're welcome to join the course with a lot more details. And of course, as I said, we do have a membership that we could, for those who are interested in it, feel free to find it on our website. I want to say thank you for being with us. Thanks for making the time. Until next time, have a great day. I'll stick around for those who have questions or comments to answer any of them on our Zoom. For those who are joining us online, have a good day. Thank you so much.